Being nice isn't saving you. It's costing you something you haven't named yet. You're sitting in a room full of people who all want something from you. Your jaw aches, not from speaking, but from holding a smile that never quite reaches your eyes. You agree to favors you don't have time for. You apologize for needing space. You nod politely when everything inside you wants to resist. And you tell yourself this is virtue. That this is what a good person does. That being agreeable, flexible, and endlessly patient somehow makes you noble. You suffer quietly and call it maturity. But look at this behavior through a colder lens. In the ruthless math of power dynamics, this isn't kindness, it's submission. You're operating under a dangerous illusion that giving more will earn loyalty, that compliance will buy safety. So you trade pieces of yourself for temporary calm, you trade dignity for approval, and it feels safer for a moment. But notice what actually happens. You're not respected, you're relied upon, you're not valued, you're convenient. Behind the pleasant exterior, something begins to rot. A quiet resentment, a bitterness you pretend isn't there, the exhaustion of waiting to be rewarded for self-denial. You call this being nice, you call this peace, but the absence of conflict is not the same as peace, and the longer you wear the smile, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before you learn to disappear. The most dangerous mask isn't anger. It's the smile that hides how much you're giving up. The etymology of ignorance. We often treat words as if they are merely labels we stick onto reality. We assume that when we speak, we are describing the world as it is. But words are not just labels. They are vessels. They carry history. They carry the ghosts of the past. And sometimes they carry a poison we swallow without realizing it. To understand why you must stop being nice, we have to look at the lineage of the word itself. You might believe that being nice is a virtue. You might think it means being pleasant, or agreeable, or polite. But language has a long memory, and the history of this specific word reveals a devastating truth about the behavior it describes. The word nice does not have noble origins. It was not born from strength. It was not born from virtue. It arrived in Middle English from the Old French, but its true roots dig much deeper into the Latin. The root word is nescius. Nescius. If you break it down, it comes from the negative particle ni combined with sire, which means to know. Therefore, the literal, original definition of nice is ignorant. It means not knowing. When the word first entered the English language in the late 13th century, it was not a compliment. It was a description of a foolish, stupid, or senseless person. To be nice was to be unaware of the facts. To be nice was to be blind to reality. This etymology is not a coincidence. It is a diagnosis. Consider the behavior of the nice person in the modern world. The nice person smiles when they are insulted. This is ignorance of their own self-worth. The nice person agrees with opinions they actually detest. This is ignorance of the truth. The nice person allows others to cross their boundaries repeatedly. This is ignorance of the consequences. Just as the Latin root suggests, the nice person is behaving as if they do not know any better. They are acting out a performance of blindness. They pretend not to see the dark triad of human nature. They pretend not to see the manipulation in the eyes of the person using them. They pretend that if they just smile wide enough, the harsh edges of reality will soften. This is the strategy of the ostrich burying its head in the sand. It is a deliberate state of nescius. Now contrast this with the etymology of the word kind. Kindness has a completely different genetic code. It comes from the Old English word sind, which refers to nature, family, and lineage. It is the root of the word kin. To be kind is to treat someone as if they are your kin. It is to act according to your nature. This distinction is crucial. Niceness is about a lack of knowledge. Kindness is about an abundance of connection. When you are kind to someone, you are acknowledging a shared humanity. But think about how you treat your actual kin. Think about how a strong father treats a son, or how a wise leader treats their people. If your brother is addicted to a destructive vice, do you smile and buy him more of it because you want to be pleasant? No. That would be nice. That would be ignorant. That would be Niceness. Instead, you intervene. You might have to be harsh. You might have to yell. You might have to cut him off. You do this not because you want to please him, but because you value his life. That is kindness. It is an act rooted in the reality of the situation and the bond between you. Niceness is low resolution. It blurs the details of life so everything looks safe. Kindness is high resolution. It sees the cancer and cuts it out to save the patient. Let us look at this through the lens of power. Niccolò Machiavelli, the great analyst of power dynamics, understood this distinction perfectly, even if he did not use these specific English terms. In his analysis of leadership, Machiavelli observed that a ruler who focuses solely on being loved and agreeable often leads his state to ruin. Such a ruler is nice. He is afraid to punish. He is afraid to offend. He is ignorant of the necessity of conflict. Because he refuses to make hard choices, disorder spreads. Criminals go unpunished. Corruption festers. By trying to be pleasant to everyone, he ends up being cruel to the entire population. He sacrifices the stability of the state on the altar of his own vanity. He wants to be seen as good, rather than actually doing the work of the good. On the other hand, Machiavelli describes the leader who is willing to be feared. This leader establishes order. He executes the traitor to prevent a civil war. He enforces the law rigidly. This might seem harsh, but it is actually the ultimate form of kindness. By exercising strength, he protects the weak from the strong. By punishing the few, he saves the many. This requires a man who is not Niceness. He knows exactly what human nature is. He knows that men are often fickle, ungrateful, and greedy. He does not ignore this reality. He structures his behavior around it. The nice person assumes everyone means well. The kind person hopes everyone means well, but has a plan for when they do not. This is why the nice person is so easily manipulated. In a negotiation, the nice person is terrified of silence. They are terrified of the word no. They will give away their leverage just to keep the atmosphere pleasant. They are ignorant of the fact that conflict is a necessary part of determining value. The kind person, however, can be incredibly firm. They can look you in the eye and refuse your request without blinking. They are not doing it to hurt you. They are doing it because they respect their own position. They are acting from their nature, their sinned, rather than a desperate need for approval. The evolution of the word nice from meaning stupid to meaning pleasant is a tragedy of language. It suggests that society slowly began to value harmlessness over competence. It suggests that we started to prefer people who were easy to handle over people who were real. When you call someone nice, you are often describing their submission. You are saying that they present no threat. You are saying that they are manageable. But you do not want to be manageable. You want to be capable. To escape the trap of niceness, you must stop celebrating your own ignorance. You must stop pretending that you do not see the insults. You must stop pretending that you do not feel the resentment building in your chest when you say yes to things you hate. You must embrace the difficult path of kindness. Kindness requires a backbone. It requires you to have principles that you value more than the immediate emotional comfort of the person in front of you. A nice doctor tells you what you want to hear to avoid upsetting you. A kind doctor tells you the devastating truth so you can take action to save your life. A nice friend allows you to live in a delusion. A kind friend risks the friendship to wake you up. The transition from nice to kind is the transition from a child seeking a parent's approval to an adult taking responsibility for their world. It is the death of the necios. It is the awakening of the knowing mind. You must strip away the smiling facade that you have used to protect yourself. It is not a shield. It is a blindfold. It keeps you from seeing the world, and it keeps the world from seeing the true measure of your strength. The world has enough nice people. It is drowning in them. They are the smiling martyrs who resent their own sacrifices. They are the passive aggressors who destroy relationships because they cannot speak their truth. We do not need more of that. We need the raw, difficult, principled strength of kindness. We need people who know who they are and who treat others with the respect of truth, rather than the disrespect of flattery. Understand the history of the words you embody. Do not be ignorant. Do not be necious. Be of your nature. Be kind. If you are ready to leave the ignorance of niceness behind and cultivate the strength of true kindness, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are building a library of strategies for those who refuse to live life with their eyes closed. Join us. The Courtier's Dilemma. To understand the lethality of niceness, we must walk the corridors of power in a place where a single misplaced word could mean the end of one's life. Picture the marble halls of a Renaissance palace. The air is thick with perfume to mask the stench of the city below, and the silence is heavy with unsaid threats. Here we find the courtier. He is the ancestor of the modern people-pleaser. He is dressed in the finest velvet, and he wears a permanent smile that does not quite reach his eyes. The courtier is the nice man personified. He agrees with everything the duke says. When the duke laughs, the courtier laughs louder. When the duke suggests a foolish military campaign that will surely bankrupt the state, the courtier nods enthusiastically and calls it brilliance. He does this because he believes that being agreeable is the same as being safe. He believes that if he makes himself small and pleasant and frictionless, he will survive the treacherous waters of the court. But Niccolò Machiavelli saw through this fragile performance. In his observations of statecraft, he identified a fatal flaw in the architecture of niceness. A ruler or an advisor who seeks only to be loved and to avoid all conflict eventually breeds contempt. The courtier thinks he is building friendship, but he is actually broadcasting weakness. By never asserting a boundary, and by never speaking a hard truth, he makes himself disposable. This is the courtier's dilemma. To be nice is to survive the moment, but to doom the future. Let us look closer at the mechanics of this failure. Niceness is rooted in fear. It is a defensive strategy used by those who feel powerless. The courtier smiles not because he is overflowing with warmth, but because he is terrified of the sword. He modifies his personality to fit the shape of whatever container he is poured into. This is not virtue. It is camouflage. Now contrast this with the quality of kindness. In the Machiavellian framework, kindness is not about soft words or easy agreements. Kindness is about effectiveness and long-term stability. It is the ability to take the action that produces the best outcome, even if that action is temporarily painful or unpopular. Consider a surgeon. A nice surgeon might be afraid to cut your skin because he does not want to cause you pain. He might give you a pill and send you home to avoid the unpleasantness of surgery. That is niceness. It is also negligence. A kind surgeon creates a wound. He cuts you open. He causes trauma to the body. But he does so with precision and knowledge to remove the cancer that is killing you. The pain he inflicts is principled. It is necessary. It is kind. The courtier lacks this capacity. If the duke is drinking poisoned wine, the nice courtier might hesitate to slap the goblet from his hand because he fears causing offense. The kind advisor, however, will knock the cup to the floor without hesitation. He accepts the immediate anger of the Duke to secure the Duke's survival. One cares about the feelings in the room. The other cares about the reality of the situation. Machiavelli argued that a prince must learn how not to be good when the situation demands it. This is often misinterpreted as a call for evil, but it is actually a call for agency. To stop being nice means you stop letting the whims of others dictate your behavior. You stop prioritizing the immediate emotional comfort of those around you over the objective truth. When you operate from a place of niceness, you are essentially lying. You are presenting a false version of yourself to the world. You suppress your true thoughts. You hide your true desires. You bury your resentment deep in your belly, where it rots and turns into bitterness. The courtier eventually grows to hate the Duke he serves because he resents having to bow and scrape every day. But he never stops bowing because he has forgotten how to stand up. This dynamic plays out in modern offices and relationships with terrifying precision. The employee who cannot say no to extra work is the modern courtier. He smiles and accepts the burden thinking he is being a good team player. In reality, he is training his superiors to exploit him. He is not respected for his sacrifice. He is viewed as a resource to be used up and discarded. When promotion time comes, the leadership looks for someone who commands respect and someone who can make difficult decisions. They do not look for the man who apologizes for existing. To escape the courtier's dilemma, you must be willing to trade likability for respect. This is the core transition from nice to kind. Kindness requires a backbone. It requires you to have a set of principles that are more important to you than the approval of others. Imagine a general on the battlefield. A nice general wants everyone to be safe. He delays the attack. He refuses to send men into danger. He hesitates. The result is that his army is surrounded and slaughtered. A kind general knows the value of life, but he also knows the objective of the war. He sends a battalion to hold the ridge, knowing many will not return, because that sacrifice saves the entire army and wins the war. His decisiveness is a form of kindness to the collective, even if it appears ruthless in the micro view. You must begin to view your life through this lens of strategic kindness. When you set a boundary with a toxic friend, you are not being mean. You are cutting out the rot. You are performing the surgery. When you tell your partner the truth about what you need, instead of silently, resentfully accepting what you are given, you are knocking the poisoned cup from their hand. You are introducing conflict to establish truth. The nice person avoids conflict at the cost of truth. The kind person uses conflict to establish truth. Machiavelli famously noted that men are quick to change their nature when it suits them. They are ungrateful and fickle and simulators. If you build your foundation on their approval, you are building a castle on sand. The courtier lives in a state of constant anxiety because his safety depends on the mood of another. He has outsourced his security to the people he aims to please. The move toward kindness is a reclamation of power. It is the realization that you can survive disapproval. The moment you realize that you can endure an awkward silence or a disappointed look is the moment you stop being a courtier and start being a sovereign. Being kind means you are predictable in the best way possible. People know where you stand. You are not a shapeshifter. Your yes means yes, and your no means no. This creates trust. The courtier is never trusted because everyone knows his loyalty is for sale to the highest bidder or the loudest voice. But the principled man is trusted even by his enemies because he acts according to a code. We must discard the juvenile definition of kindness that equates it with softness. True kindness is strong. It is the strength to hold up a mirror to a friend and show them their flaws so they can grow. It is the strength to fire an incompetent employee to save the company and the jobs of the other competent workers. It is the strength to walk away from a negotiation that does not serve your interests, Stop smiling when you want to bare your teeth. The world has enough courtiers. The world is drowning in people who are terrified of being disliked. It is starving for people who are kind enough to be real. As we leave the palace and the nervous courtier behind, understand that his fate is sealed. He will eventually be replaced by a younger, nicer courtier, or he will be swept away when the regime changes. He has no legacy because he had no self. Do not share his fate. Choose the path of the strategist. Choose the path of the surgeon. Choose to be kind, the hidden contract of resentment. There is a ledger kept in the back of the human mind. For the man who identifies as nice, this ledger is the most important document in his existence. It is a thick and dusty volume where he records every single act of self-sacrifice, every swallowed objection, and every forced smile he has ever offered to the world. He believes he is a saint accumulating merit. In reality, he is a usurer accumulating debt. This brings us to the most dangerous aspect of niceness. It is not merely a behavioral pattern of agreeableness. It is a hidden economic system. We call this the hidden contract of resentment. To understand this, we must look through the lens of power dynamics, much as a Machiavellian observer might study the intrigues of a Renaissance court. In the courts of old, there were open alliances, and there were secret treaties. An open alliance is strong because the terms are clear. I provide you with soldiers, and you provide me with gold. Both parties know the cost and the benefit. If the contract is breached, the conflict is open and resolved through negotiation or war. The nice person, however, operates solely through secret treaties. He drafts a contract in his own imagination. The terms of this contract usually look something like this. I will do everything you want without you asking. I will anticipate your needs and suppress my own desires. I will never cause a scene or offer a critique. In exchange, you will give me love, protection, promotion, and never be angry with me. There is only one problem with this contract. The other person never saw it. They never signed it. They are not even aware it exists. Imagine a courtier who brings the king a goblet of wine every hour, even when the king has not asked for it. The courtier thinks he is buying the king's favor. The king, however, just thinks the courtier is weirdly obsessed with wine, or perhaps a bit of a nuisance. When the king eventually promotes a different advisor, one who actually solved a military crisis instead of just fetching drinks, the courtier is crushed. This crush does not manifest as sadness. It manifests as a toxic, simmering rage. This is where niceness reveals its true nature as a vice rather than a virtue. The nice person does not do good things for the sake of doing good. He does them as a down payment on a future reward that he feels entitled to. When that reward does not materialize, the nice person feels robbed. He feels that the world has breached a contract. He looks at his ledger. He sees thousands of entries where he sacrificed his comfort for you. He sees the times he stayed late at work without complaint. He sees the times he let you choose the movie, even though he hated it. He sees the times he apologized when he was actually the one who was wronged. He adds up the sum and decides that you owe him a massive debt. But because his primary strategy is conflict avoidance, he cannot demand payment. He cannot walk up to you and say that he is angry because he has been manipulating you with kindness, and it did not work. That would reveal the game. It would reveal that his niceness was actually a strategy of control. So instead, he descends into resentment. Resentment is the specific bitterness that comes from perceived unfairness. It is the emotion of the victim. For the nice person, it acts like a poison that rots the vessel that holds it. You will see this in the passive-aggressive remark. You will see it in the sudden, inexplicable explosion of anger over a minor mistake. You will hear it in the heavy sigh of the martyr who cleans the kitchen while making sure everyone knows how much he is suffering. This dynamic is well known to students of power. Niccolò Machiavelli warned that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But the nice person tries to be loved by being weak. He makes himself a doormat and then is surprised when people wipe their feet on him. He forgets that the function of a doormat is to be stepped on. When you operate from a place of niceness, you are essentially creating a covert transaction. You are trying to buy safety with submission. But in the real world, submission does not buy safety. It invites exploitation, and when the nice person is finally exploited, their resentment makes them treacherous. There is no one more dangerous than a weak man who feels the world owes him something. A strong man who is angry will tell you he is angry. He will state his grievance. You can deal with him. A nice man who is angry will smile at you while he sabotages your reputation. He will agree to your face and fail to deliver behind your back. His resentment justifies any betrayal because in his mind, he has already paid for the right to betray you with years of unappreciated service. Contrast this with the concept of kindness. If niceness is a hidden contract, kindness is a gift given from a position of abundance. A kind man helps you move your furniture because he is strong, he has the time, and he values your friendship. He expects nothing in return. If you do not thank him sufficiently, he might note your lack of manners, but he does not feel robbed. He did not do it to buy your approval. He did it because it was in his nature to be helpful in that moment. Kindness is principled. It comes from a solid core of self-respect. A kind person can say no. In fact, a kind person must say no. If he helps you, it is a choice, not a compulsion. The nice person cannot say no. His yes is meaningless because it is automatic. It is a reflex born of fear. Because he cannot say no, his help is not a gift. It is a tax he pays to his own anxiety. Let us return to the courtier. The kind courtier serves the king with honest counsel. If the king is about to make a foolish mistake, the kind courtier speaks up, even if it risks the king's anger. He values the king's success more than the king's temporary approval. This is kindness. It is useful. It is strong. The nice courtier flatters the king. He tells the king that his foolish plan is brilliant. He does this to protect his own position and to avoid the discomfort of confrontation. When the kingdom falls because of that foolish plan, the nice courtier is just as guilty as the foolish king. His niceness was nothing more than negligence dressed up as loyalty. You must burn the ledger. You must realize that nobody owes you anything for sacrifices they did not ask you to make. The hidden contract is the primary source of misery for the modern male. It turns relationships into transactional hellscapes. It turns professional environments into minefields of unspoken expectations. It strips you of your agency because you are constantly waiting for the world to pay you back. The world will not pay you back. The world responds to clarity, to competence, and to leverage. It does not respond to silent emotional blackmail. Stopping being nice does not mean becoming a villain. It means becoming transparent. It means stating your needs clearly. It means negotiating open contracts rather than secret ones. If you want a promotion, you ask what is required to achieve it, and then you do the work. You do not bring donuts to the office for 3 years and then sulk when you are bypassed. If you want a relationship to work, you state your boundaries. You say what you will accept and what you will not. You do not tolerate bad behavior in the hope that your tolerance will be rewarded with love. When you destroy the hidden contract, you destroy the root of resentment. You are no longer a victim of your own secret expectations. You become a man who acts upon the world, rather than a man who waits for the world to pity him. You must trade the anxious, smiling facade of the courtier for the grounded, calm presence of the sovereign. The sovereign is kind because he is secure. He is generous because he has plenty. But he is never, ever nice. He does not need to be. He has nothing to prove, and no hidden debts to collect. By abandoning the hidden contract, you step out of the shadows of passive aggression and into the light of genuine interaction. It is a terrifying step for those addicted to the safety of the smile, but it is the only path that leads away from the bitterness of the martyr and toward the dignity of the integrated man. Once you stop trying to buy people, you can finally start to lead them. And once you stop keeping score of what you are owed, you can finally begin to build what you own. The surgeon and the butcher. Imagine a blade resting on a table. It is sharp, cold, and indifferent. In the hands of a surgeon, this blade is an instrument of salvation. It cuts to remove a tumor. It cuts to drain an abscess. It cuts to reset a bone that has grown crooked. The pain it inflicts is precise, measured, and absolutely necessary for the survival of the patient. Now place that same blade in the hands of a man who is terrified of causing pain. He is squeamish. He hands out painkillers and smiles. He covers the gangrenous wound with a bandage so nobody has to look at it. He refuses to cut because he wants to be viewed as gentle. He wants to be liked. By the time he finally acts, the infection has spread to the blood. He is forced to hack away a limb that could have been saved, or worse, he watches the patient die while holding his hand and whispering sweet nothings. The first man is kind. The second man is nice. This is the distinction between the surgeon and the butcher. One possesses the competence and the courage to inflict temporary pain for long-term well-being. The other creates a massacre through negligence and cowardice. To understand why you must abandon niceness, we must look to the ultimate realist of political strategy, Niccolò Machiavelli. In his seminal work on power, he draws a sharp contrast between the Florentine Republic and Cesare Borgia. The Florentine people prided themselves on their enlightenment. They were nice. They were civilized. They avoided conflict at all costs. When riots broke out in the neighboring city of Pistoia, the Florentines refused to intervene decisively. They did not want to be seen as cruel or authoritarian. They sent diplomats. They sent stern letters. They wrung their hands. Because of their hesitation, the riots in Pistoia escalated into a bloodbath that destroyed the city. Their niceness resulted in total devastation. Contrast this with Cesare Borgia. When he took control of the Romagna region, he found it infested with bandits and lawlessness. The people were suffering. Borgia did not send diplomats. He sent a cruel and efficient governor who established order through the sword. It was brutal. It was terrifying. But within months, the roads were safe. Commerce returned. Families could sleep without fear of invasion. Machiavelli poses the question of who was more compassionate. Was it the nice Florentines who allowed a city to burn because they were afraid to be harsh? Or was it Borgia, whose calculated severity brought peace and prosperity to a whole region? Machiavelli concludes that a prince who is afraid to be feared is the cruelest of all. His misplaced mercy allows disorders to arise, from which follow murders or robberies. These harm the whole community. The execution of a criminal harms only the individual. This is the paradox you must internalize. Niceness is often a form of systemic cruelty masquerading as virtue. Kindness, true kindness, often looks like ruthlessness to the uninitiated. Bringing this down from the level of statecraft to your daily life, consider the dynamics of your own relationships. Think of the nice manager. He has an employee who is underperforming. This employee is toxic, lazy, and drags down the rest of the team. The nice manager does not want to have a difficult conversation. He does not want to be the bad guy. So he smiles. He gives vague feedback. He hopes the problem will fix itself. Meanwhile, the competent employees grow resentful. They are doing the work of two people. The team culture rots. The competent people leave. Finally, the department collapses, and everyone loses their job. The manager's desire to be nice was the butcher's knife that slaughtered the livelihood of his entire team. A kind manager acts like the surgeon. He calls the toxic employee into his office. He looks him in the eye. He delivers the truth without sugarcoating it. You are not meeting the standard. Here is the data. Correct it immediately, or you will be gone. This conversation is painful. It causes anxiety. It spikes cortisol. But it is the incision that saves the organism. It respects the competent workers. It even respects the incompetent worker by giving him the dignity of the truth, allowing him to either improve or find a role better suited to his nature. This applies to your personal life with equal weight. How many years have you wasted in relationships that were dead because you were too nice to break up? You stayed. You grew distant. You became passive-aggressive. You smiled while you withheld affection. You wasted their time and yours because you did not want to endure the sharp, clean pain of a breakup. You butchered their youth and yours because you lacked the courage of the surgeon. Niceness is fundamentally selfish. It is a vanity project. When you are being nice, you are not thinking about the other person. You are thinking about how the other person views you. You are obsessed with your own image as a saintly, harmless figure. You are protecting your ego from the discomfort of conflict. Kindness is fundamentally selfless. It is rooted in utility and reality. To be kind, you must be willing to be disliked in the moment to achieve the best outcome for the future. You must be willing to endure the accusation of being mean, cold, or heartless. The surgeon does not care if the patient screams while he sets the bone. He cares that the bone heals straight. He focuses on the outcome, not the applause. The transition from nice to kind requires you to develop a stomach for short-term chaos. You must learn to tolerate the sight of blood, metaphorically speaking. You must learn that conflict is not a failure of character. It is often the only path to resolution. If you continue to be nice, you are engaging in a form of deception. You are presenting a false front to the world. You are telling people that everything is fine when it is not. You are signaling approval of behaviors that are destructive. You are the parent who gives the diabetic child candy because you cannot bear to see them cry. You are the friend who watches an addict destroy themselves because you do not want to be judgmental. You are the partner who tolerates disrespect because you are afraid of being alone. This is not virtue. This is weakness. It is a weakness that has been rebranded as morality by a society that prefers comfort to competence. The path of the surgeon requires skill. Any fool can be nice. It takes zero effort to smile and nod. It takes zero effort to agree. It takes immense effort to diagnose a problem, formulate a solution, and execute it against the resistance of the patient. Kindness is an active, muscular virtue. It requires you to be observant. It requires you to be articulate. It requires you to be strong. You must stop seeking the immediate dopamine hit of social approval. You must start seeking the long-term satisfaction of effectiveness. When you look in the mirror, ask yourself what you hold in your hand. Is it the dull, jagged blade of the butcher, hacking away at your life with hesitation and fear? Or is it the precision scalpel of the surgeon, ready to inflict the necessary cut to heal the world around you? Stop being nice. It is killing you, and it is destroying the people you claim to care about. Pick up the scalpel. Make the cut. Be kind. The lion's capacity for harm. There is a profound misunderstanding in modern society regarding the nature of virtue. We have conflated harmlessness with goodness. We look at the man who never raises his voice, the man who never fights back, the man who bends with every breeze of public opinion, and we label him virtuous. We say he is a nice man. But there is a fatal flaw in this logic. A rabbit is not virtuous because it does not eat the wolf. A rabbit is not a pacifist. A rabbit is simply a rabbit. It does not eat the wolf because it cannot. Its diet and its gentleness are not moral choices, but biological mandates. It lacks the capacity for violence. Therefore, its harmlessness is not a virtue, but merely a state of impotence. To understand the distinction between being nice and being kind, we must confront the uncomfortable reality of power. Kindness is a virtue because it is a choice. It is an act of volition. For an act to be a choice, the alternative must be possible. If you are unable to be cruel, then your gentleness is not kindness. It is merely a lack of options. You are not holding back your strength. You simply have none to hold back. This brings us to the segment we call the lion's capacity for harm. Niccolo Machiavelli, the great realist of the Renaissance, understood this dynamic with chilling clarity. In his advice to princes and rulers, he did not suggest that a leader should be a saint in the conventional sense. He argued that a ruler must learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge or not use it according to necessity. This sounds harsh to the modern ear, but strip away the moral panic and look at the logic. Machiavelli posits that the world is full of wolves. If a leader insists on playing the sheep in a world of wolves, he does not bring about a paradise of peace. He brings about his own ruin and the ruin of those he is sworn to protect. To be truly kind, which is to say, to be a benevolent force that can protect and uplift others, you must possess the capacity for harm. You must be the lion. The lion is capable of lethal violence. It has claws. It has teeth. It has the sheer physical mass to dominate its environment. Yet, a lion can be gentle with its pride. When a lion plays with its cubs, it is demonstrating kindness precisely because we know what it is capable of doing to a gazelle. The gentleness has value because it is restrained power. Contrast this with the nice person. The nice person is often terrified of conflict. Their agreeableness is not born of love, but of fear. They smile when they are insulted, not because they have the stoic discipline of a philosopher, but because they are afraid of the consequences of standing up for themselves. This is the nice guy syndrome. It is a survival strategy for the weak. When you are nice because you feel you have no other choice, you are not being virtuous. You are begging for mercy. This creates a deep psychological rot. When a person realizes, perhaps unconsciously, that their goodness is actually just weakness, they grow resentful. They begin to despise the very people they are trying to please. They feel like a martyr, sacrificing their needs for others, but they are not sacrificing anything voluntarily. They are being trampled, and the worm eventually turns. The most dangerous person in the room is often not the loud aggressor, but the weak, resentful nice person who has been suppressing their shadow for decades. When they finally snap, their violence is not the controlled strike of a lion protecting its territory. It is the hysterical, chaotic lashing out of a cornered rat. Therefore, the path to true kindness requires the integration of your capacity for aggression. You must find your teeth. This is a psychological and behavioral imperative. You must become capable of saying no. You must become capable of enduring the displeasure of others. You must be able to articulate a threat and back it up if necessary. This does not mean you walk around looking for a fight. It means you walk around with a sword in its sheath. A sword kept in a sheath is a tool of peace. It signals that you are ready to defend your boundaries and the boundaries of those you care about. A man without a sword, or a man who refuses to pick one up, offers no security to anyone. If you cannot hurt anyone, you cannot help anyone. You are merely a leaf blowing in the wind, hoping that the world will treat you gently. But the world is indifferent to your hopes. Let us return to the Machiavellian perspective. Machiavelli advised that the prince must be both a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Note the utility of fear. Being capable of harm generates a specific type of respect. It is not the respect of terror, but the respect of gravity. When you interact with a person who you know has strong boundaries and the will to enforce them, you treat them with consideration. You do not trample on them. Their kindness feels like a gift rather than an expectation. When the nice man gives you everything you want, it feels cheap. It feels like he had to give it to you. When the strong, principled, kind man gives you his time or his help, it feels valuable. You know he could have said no. You know he has better things to do. You know he is not afraid of you. Therefore, his generosity is an authentic expression of his character, not a reflex of his anxiety. Developing this capacity for harm acts as a filter. It filters out the parasites. Predatory people look for the nice ones. They look for the people who smile too much, who agree too quickly, who apologize for taking up space. These are the victims. Predators avoid the lions. They avoid the people who look like they can handle themselves. By stopping the habit of being nice and starting the practice of being kind, you change your signal. You stop broadcasting vulnerability and start broadcasting competence. The transition from nice to kind is the transition from child to adult. Children are harmless because they are small and dependent. Adults are dangerous because they have agency and power. To remain nice in the pejorative sense is to refuse to grow up. It is to insist on remaining a child in a world that requires adults. You must accept that you have a monster inside you. We all do. Evolution has equipped us with adrenaline, with aggression, with the instinct to dominate and destroy. To deny this is to deny your humanity. The nice person shoves the monster into the basement and locks the door, where it grows twisted and poisonous. The kind person invites the monster up, sits it down, and trains it. The kind person harnesses that aggression and turns it into ambition, into protection, into fortitude. So, do not aim to be harmless. Harmlessness is a defect. Aim to be dangerous, and then aim to control that danger. Be the surgeon who cuts to heal, not the butcher who cuts to destroy. But never forget that both hold a knife. The difference is not in the tool, but in the mind and the discipline of the one who wields it. True kindness requires a spine. It requires the ability to withstand the tension of the moment. It requires you to prioritize truth over comfort. The nice person will lie to you to keep the peace. The kind person will tell you the truth to help you grow, even if it hurts in the moment. The nice person will let you walk off a cliff because they do not want to offend you by grabbing your arm. The kind person will grab your arm hard enough to leave a bruise, because the bruise is better than the fall. Stop seeking the approval of the sheep. Stop fearing the judgment of the wolves. Cultivate the strength of the lion. Only when you are capable of harm can you truly claim to be a gentle, moral, and kind human being. Everything else is just cowardice wearing a smile. Machiavelli's Prince, cruel to be kind. Let us turn the pages of history back to the turbulent landscape of Renaissance Italy to confront a figure who has been misunderstood for 5 centuries. Niccolò Machiavelli is often painted as a teacher of evil and a master of deception. But if we strip away the moral panic that surrounds his name, we find a man who was obsessed with the mechanics of reality rather than the comfort of fantasy. He was not interested in how the world ought to be. He was interested in how the world actually is. In his most famous work, The Prince, he dismantles the facade of the nice ruler and exposes the true nature of the kind ruler. You have likely been told that a good person is harmless. You have been raised to believe that the path to virtue is paved with constant agreement and the avoidance of friction. This is the doctrine of the nice person. It is a doctrine that Machiavelli would argue leads to ruin. He observed that a prince who wants to maintain his state is often forced to not be good. This sounds contradictory to the modern ear because we confuse goodness with agreeableness. We conflate the absence of conflict with the presence of peace. Machiavelli shattered this illusion by introducing a distinction that is vital for our discussion. He differentiated between cruelty well used and cruelty badly used. To understand this, we must look at the historical example of Cesare Borgia. Borgia was a formidable figure who sought to consolidate power in the Romagna region. When he arrived, he found the area in a state of absolute desolation. The region was being managed by what we might call nice lords. These were weak rulers who were more interested in maintaining their status and avoiding difficult decisions than in governing effectively. Because these lords were unwilling to exert authority and enforce laws, the land was plagued by robbery and feuds and every manner of violence. The weakness of the rulers had created a vacuum where chaos reigned. Their refusal to be severe resulted in the suffering of thousands of citizens. Borgia did not make the mistake of being nice. He understood that to be truly kind to the population, he had to eliminate the chaos. He appointed a man named Ramiro de Orco to govern the region. Ramiro was a cruel and efficient man. He did not care about being liked. He cared about order. Within a short time, Ramiro pacified the region and united it. The robberies stopped. The feuds ended. The people could walk the streets without fear of being murdered by bandits. This was a kindness. It was achieved not through smiles and concessions, but through the terrifying application of justice. However, Machiavelli notes the genius of the next move. Borgia knew that the severity of Ramiro had generated hatred among the people. The people were grateful for the peace, but they resented the cruelty used to achieve it. Borgia needed to signal that the brutality was a temporary necessity, not a permanent state of affairs. One morning, the people of Cesena woke up to find Ramiro de Orco cut in 2 pieces in the public square. Beside his body was a block of wood and a bloody knife. This spectacle served a dual purpose. It satisfied the people, and it stupefied them. It showed them that the cruelty was over, but it also demonstrated the ultimate power of the prince. Now you might recoil at this story. It is violent and gruesome. But look closer at the logic. Machiavelli argues that Borgia was much more merciful than the people of Florence, who, in order to avoid being called cruel, allowed a neighboring city to be destroyed by factional fighting. The Florentines were nice. They did not want to intervene. They did not want to get their hands dirty. And because of their niceness, an entire city collapsed into anarchy. Borgia, on the other hand, used a calculated amount of severity to secure the safety of a whole region. This brings us to the uncomfortable truth about your own life. When you strive to be nice, you are acting like the weak lords of the Romagna. You avoid the difficult conversation with the friend who is taking advantage of you. You refuse to discipline an employee who is poisoning the team. You stay silent when a partner crosses a boundary because you do not want to cause a scene. You tell yourself you are being virtuous. You tell yourself you are a martyr for the sake of harmony. But look at the results. Just like the weak lords, your refusal to act creates chaos. By avoiding the small conflict of a confrontation, you invite the large conflict of resentment and long-term failure. You allow the robbery of your time and the destruction of your self-respect. You are not being kind, you are being negligent. The kind person acts with the precision of Cesare Borgia. This does not mean you leave bodies in the town square. It means you understand that true compassion sometimes requires a sharp edge. The kind person is willing to be temporarily misunderstood for the sake of a long-term good. When you finally set a hard boundary with a toxic family member, they will call you cruel. They will say you have changed. They will say you are mean. This is the price of the surgeon's knife. You are inflicting a small immediate pain to prevent the spread of a gangrenous infection. Machiavelli warns that a man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. This is the trap of the nice person. They project their own harmlessness onto the world and expect the world to reciprocate. When the world does not reciprocate, they collapse into bitterness. They become the victim. The kind person, however, has no such illusions. The kind person knows that human nature is flawed and that people are often driven by self-interest. Therefore, the kind person integrates the capacity for severity. This is the integration of the lion. You possess the teeth and the claws, not so that you can tear innocent people apart, but so that you can protect the integrity of your domain. A leader who cannot punish is not a leader. A parent who cannot say no is not a parent. A friend who cannot offer a harsh truth is not a friend. They are merely a flatterer seeking the dopamine hit of approval. Consider the surgeon again. If a surgeon is nice, they might hesitate to cut your skin because they do not want to hurt you. They might tremble at the thought of the blood. Their niceness would kill you. A kind surgeon cuts deep. They sever the tissue and break the bone if necessary, because their eye is fixed on the healing that follows the wound. They possess the strength to inflict the necessary trauma that leads to life. Machiavelli teaches us that it is safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. In the context of your personal psychology, this means it is safer to be respected than liked. Niceness chases being liked. Kindness commands respect. When you are nice, you are essentially handing the keys of your emotional state to everyone you meet. You are begging them to validate you. You are the courtier bowing and scraping, hoping the king does not frown. When you are kind, you are the prince. You have your own laws. You have your own code. You treat people with dignity and generosity, not because you need their approval, but because it is who you are. And when someone violates that code, you do not smile and pretend it is fine. You act, you withdraw your attention, you speak the corrective word, you cut the tie. You do this without malice and without rage. You do it with the cold objective necessity of gravity. Stop trying to be the harmless saint in a world that requires strong operators. The smiling martyr is a fraud who breeds disorder in their own life and the lives of those around them. Embrace the lesson of the prince. True kindness requires the power to uphold it. It requires the stomach to do the difficult thing. It requires you to abandon the shallow validation of niceness and embrace the heavy responsibility of strength. You must be willing to be the villain in someone else's story if it means maintaining the order and sanity of your own. The fortress of boundaries. Imagine a city without walls situated on a fertile plain. In the ancient world, such a city was not considered peaceful or welcoming. It was considered a ruin in waiting. Its granaries were open to thieves, its temples open to defilers, and its people open to slaughter. To the historical observer, a city without gates was not a symbol of supreme virtue, but a monument to negligence. This is the architecture of the Nice person. We have spent the previous chapters dismantling the facade of the smiling martyr and exploring the necessity of the capacity for aggression. Now, we must arrange those raw materials into a structure. We must build the fortress of boundaries. There is a prevalent myth in modern socialization that barriers are inherently unkind. We are taught that to be good is to be accessible, to be porous, to be constantly available to the demands and whims of others. The nice person believes that saying yes is an act of charity, while saying no is an act of violence. They view a boundary as a rejection, a cold shoulder, or a slap in the face. Consequently, they live their lives with the drawbridge down and the portcullis raised, wondering why their inner treasury is constantly looted and why they feel a deep, rattling exhaustion in their bones. This is where we must apply the cold, surgical wisdom of statecraft to the management of the soul. A sovereign state defines itself by its borders. Without a border, there is no state. There is only a generic, undefended space. Similarly, without boundaries, there is no self. There is only a collection of reactions to other people's needs. Niceness fails because it refuses to defend the territory. It operates on the naive assumption that if you are defenseless, others will treat you with gentleness. History, however, teaches us the opposite lesson. Weakness provokes aggression. An undefended resource invites exploitation. When you are nice, when you refuse to erect boundaries because you fear displeasing others, you are not being virtuous. You are merely being easy prey. Contrast this with the architecture of kindness. Kindness is not an open field. It is a fortress with a gate. The kind person possesses a distinct perimeter. They know where they end and where the rest of the world begins. They have defined their values, their time, and their energy as resources that must be protected, not because they are greedy, but because they understand the economics of generosity. You cannot pour water from a shattered pitcher. You cannot offer shelter if your own roof has collapsed. The kind person understands that boundaries are the prerequisite for sustainability. If you wish to be helpful to those around you, you must first possess the strength to sustain yourself. This requires the ability to repel what is harmful, distracting, or draining. It requires the Machiavellian insight that a ruler who seeks to be loved by everyone will eventually be despised by everyone, for he will lack the power to solve any real problems. By trying to please the mob, the weak ruler bankrupts the state. By trying to appease every request, the nice person bankrupts their spirit. Let us look closely at the mechanism of the boundary. It is, at its core, a form of communication. When you set a boundary, you are telling the truth. You are informing the world of your limits. You are defining what is acceptable and what is not. The nice person lies. They say yes when they mean no. They smile when they feel anger. They agree to obligations they resent. They do this to maintain a smooth surface, to avoid the immediate discomfort of conflict. But this is a betrayal of reality. It creates a false relationship based on a hidden contract. The nice person thinks, I will do this thing I hate, and in return, you will love me. But the other person never signed that contract. They simply see an open door and walk through it. The kind person tells the truth. They say, I cannot do that. They say, I will not tolerate that behavior. They say, this is my limit. This honesty is the mortar of the fortress. It may feel sharp or cold in the moment, but it is the only foundation upon which genuine respect can be built. People may like the nice person, but they rarely respect them. They treat the nice person like a utility, a vending machine that dispenses favors without requiring payment. But the kind person, the one with boundaries, commands a different sort of attention. When a person with strong boundaries says yes, it carries weight. It is a choice, not a compulsion. It is a gift given from a position of strength, not a tribute paid from a position of fear. Building this fortress requires you to overcome the deep-seated fear of being disliked. This is the great hurdle. We are social creatures, and the biological impulse to fit in is strong. Niceness appeals to that primal urge to merge with the herd for safety. But to be a leader, to be a person of substance, you must be willing to stand apart. Machiavelli noted that a prince must not flinch from the reputation of being severe if it keeps his subjects united and faithful. He understood that a little cruelty, in the form of strict justice or a hard refusal, is often more merciful than a leniency that allows disorder to fester. Apply this to your life. When you refuse a request that would drain you, you are momentarily severing a connection. You are risking the other person's displeasure. The nice person cannot bear this. They would rather suffer internally than witness external dissatisfaction. But the kind person looks at the long term. They know that if they say yes to avoid a moment of awkwardness, they will breed months of resentment. That resentment will eventually poison the relationship. Therefore, the refusal is the kindest act. It preserves the integrity of the connection by preventing the rot of bitterness. The fortress of boundaries also serves a vital function in filtering your environment. When you have no walls, you attract those who are looking for easy entry. You attract the parasites, the narcissists, and the energy vampires who thrive on people-pleasing hosts. They can smell the lack of boundaries, like sharks smell blood in the water. However, when you raise your walls, a shift occurs. The parasites lose interest. They do not want to climb the ramparts. They want an open gate. They move on to easier targets. In their place, you begin to attract people who respect strength. You attract peers, not dependents. You attract people who are willing to meet you at the gate, who understand the protocol of mutual respect. The quality of your relationships improves dramatically because the entry fee to your life has been raised. You must understand that your energy is a finite territory. You are the steward of that land. If you allow it to be overgrazed by the demands of others, it becomes a wasteland. This is not a metaphysical theory, it is a material reality. Burnout, depression, and seething rage are the natural ecological consequences of a life without fences. To be kind is to be a good steward. It is to cultivate your garden behind a high wall so that you have fruit to offer when you choose to open the gate. It is the discipline of keeping the reservoir full. There is a paradox here that you must embrace. The stronger your boundaries, the softer you can be within them. The knight inside the castle can be at ease, can sleep soundly, can enjoy the hearth precisely because the walls are thick and the watchman is awake. The person without boundaries is never truly at ease. They are hyper-vigilant, always scanning for the next invasion, always bracing for the next demand, living in a state of low-level panic. By building the fortress, you create a space of peace. Within that space, you can exercise true empathy. You can listen without absorbing. You can help without depleting. You can love without losing yourself. This is the transition from the smiling martyr to the principled sovereign. You are no longer asking for permission to exist. You are defining the terms of your existence. You are declaring that this space, this body, this mind, and this time belong to you. You will trade them, you will share them, and you will give them freely when the cause is right, but you will never again leave them unguarded. The fortress is not a prison. It is the structure of your character. It is the physical manifestation of your self-respect, and it is the only place from which true kindness can ever emerge. Stop being nice, build the wall, man the gate, and only then open the door on your own terms. The toxicity of toxic empathy. There is a specific form of poison that often disguises itself as a virtue. It is sweet to the taste and comforting to the touch. We call it empathy. But there is a point where empathy ceases to be a tool for connection and becomes a mechanism for self-destruction. This is the toxicity of toxic empathy. To understand the difference between being nice and being kind, you must understand the difference between joining someone in a pit and pulling them out of it. The nice person views empathy as a total surrender of boundaries. They believe that to truly care for another human being, they must feel exactly what that person feels. If their friend is anxious, they must become anxious. If their partner is depressed, they must mirror that depression. They lower their own internal defenses to let the emotional state of the other person flood into their own psyche. They call this solidarity. They call this being a good person. But in reality, it is nothing more than emotional contagion. Imagine a man drowning in a turbulent sea. He is thrashing. He is screaming. He is consumed by the panic of his imminent death. The nice person stands on the deck of the ship and sees this suffering. Driven by this toxic empathy, the nice person throws themselves into the water to hold the drowning man. They want to comfort him. They want to share in his struggle so he does not feel alone. But a drowning man does not need comfort. He needs rescue. In his panic, he will grab the nice person and climb on top of them, pushing them down to breathe. They will both sink into the abyss. This is the inevitable result of niceness when applied to crisis. By refusing to maintain a separation between yourself and the chaos of others, you render yourself useless. You lose the stability required to be of service. Now contrast this with the kind person. The kind person stands on the deck and watches the drowning man. They feel the gravity of the situation, but they do not allow the panic to infect their mind. They maintain a cold and rational distance. Because they are not drowning in the emotion, they have the clarity to throw a rope. They have the strength to pull the man in. This is the essence of strength. True kindness requires a position of superiority. You must be on the ship to save the man in the water. If you are in the water with him, you are just another casualty waiting to happen. This brings us back to the stark realism of Machiavelli. In the administration of a state or a business or a family, the leader must often make decisions that cause temporary distress to secure long-term stability. The nice leader fails here completely. They are paralyzed by the immediate emotional cost of their actions. They cannot fire the incompetent employee because they imagine the employee's sadness. They cannot discipline the unruly child because they fear the child's tears. They cannot confront the toxic friend because they dread the awkward tension. By avoiding the infliction of necessary pain, the nice person allows the rot to spread. The incompetent employee destroys the morale of the entire team. The unruly child grows into a maladaptive adult. The toxic friend drains the energy of the entire group. In their desperate attempt to be nice and to avoid causing bad feelings, the nice person becomes the architect of a much greater suffering. They sacrifice the health of the whole for the comfort of the part. Toxic empathy is a betrayal of the self. When you operate from this framework, you are essentially telling the world that your own emotional stability is less important than the chaotic whims of those around you. You become a sponge for the misery of others. You walk into a room, and if the energy is heavy, you absorb it. You leave feeling exhausted and heavy and resentful. And the tragedy is that your sacrifice helps no one. The other person is still miserable, but now you are miserable too. You have doubled the amount of suffering in the world under the guise of being supportive. To escape this trap, you must adopt the mindset of the clinician. Consider the surgeon in the emergency room. If the surgeon were to indulge in toxic empathy, he would look at the patient's open wound and break down in tears. He would hold the patient's hand and weep over the unfairness of the injury. He would be a very nice man, and his patient would die on the table. The kind surgeon must perform a psychological dissociation. He must view the patient not as a tragedy, but as a problem to be solved. He must pick up the scalpel. He must cut. He must cause pain to heal the trauma. He must be cold to be kind. This creates a paradox that the nice person cannot comprehend. The highest form of compassion often looks like indifference. It requires you to build a wall where you once had a door. When someone approaches you with their chaos, you must observe it from behind the battlements of your own emotional fortress. You listen. You assess. You offer resources or advice if you choose. But you do not open the gate. You do not let the enemy of disorder march into the courtyard of your mind. This is particularly vital when dealing with manipulative or narcissistic personalities. These individuals thrive on the toxic empathy of nice people. They use their own suffering as a weapon. They demand that you feel their pain because they know that if you feel it, you will do anything to stop it. You will give them money or time or validation just to make the heavy feeling go away. You are not acting out of generosity. You are acting out of a desire to stop the emotional contagion that they have infected you with. The kind person sees this trap. They recognize that everyone is responsible for their own internal state. They understand that by refusing to carry the emotional burden of another, they are actually handing that person the dignity of their own struggle. It is not your job to process the emotions of other adults. It is not your job to be the emotional regulator for people who refuse to regulate themselves. When you stop being nice and start being kind, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become a person who can witness suffering without being consumed by it. You become a person who can deliver hard truths without wavering. You become a person who can protect the tribe from the individual. This transition requires you to kill the part of yourself that seeks validation through martyrdom. You must accept that people might call you cold. They might call you uncaring. They might call you arrogant. Let them. Their judgment is the sound of their own inability to manipulate you. You have moved beyond the need for their approval and entered the realm of objective reality. The toxicity of toxic empathy lies in its arrogance. It assumes that you are strong enough to carry the weight of the world. You are not. You are a finite vessel with a finite amount of energy. If you pour yourself out for every sad story and every crisis, you will run dry. And a dry well gives water to no one. Guard your empathy. Treat it as a precious resource, not a cheap commodity. Spend it only on those who can use it to grow, not on those who use it to enable their own stagnation. Be the captain on the ship, not the body in the water. This is the only way to be of use. This is the only way to be strong. This is the only way to be truly kind. Respect over affection. You have likely heard the old adage that honey catches more flies than vinegar. It is a pleasant sentiment. It suggests that if you are sweet and palatable and agreeable, the world will flock to you and give you what you desire. But you are not a fly catcher, and your objective in life is not to trap insects. You are navigating a world of complex hierarchies and power dynamics, where sweetness is often mistaken for submission. There is a fundamental misunderstanding that plagues the nice person. They believe that affection is the highest currency of social exchange. They think that if they can just get enough people to like them, they will be safe. They believe that being liked is synonymous with being valued. But this is an error in judgment that has toppled kings and ruined the lives of ordinary men. The nice person chases affection because it feels warm. It feels like validation. It soothes the anxious ego that whispers you are not enough. But affection is volatile. It is as shifting as the wind. Niccolò Machiavelli observed this human tendency with a cold and surgical precision. In his writings, he dismantled the fantasy that being loved is the ultimate shield against ruin. He noted that friendships that are obtained by payment and not by greatness or nobility of mind may indeed be earned, but they are not secured. In times of need, they cannot be relied upon. The nice person pays for friendship with compliance. They pay for it by erasing their own boundaries. They buy affection by agreeing when they should disagree, and by smiling when they should scowl. This is a transaction based on weakness. When you base your relationships on the desire to be liked, you hand the keys of your emotional stability to others. You become a courtier in the palace of public opinion, constantly adjusting your mask to suit the mood of the crowd. This is exhausting. It is the definition of slavery. You are enslaved to the whims of those you are trying to impress. And the tragedy is that the more you try to please them, the less they respect you. Respect is a different beast entirely. Unlike affection, which is often given freely and taken back on a whim, respect must be earned. It is the recognition of competence and strength and integrity. Respect is what happens when someone looks at you and sees a person who stands for something. It is the acknowledgement that you are a force to be reckoned with. The kind person understands this distinction. They know that it is possible to be respected without being particularly liked, and they are comfortable with that trade. Consider the archetype of the effective leader versus the people-pleasing manager. The manager who is desperate to be liked will avoid conflict at all costs. They will not correct bad behavior because they fear the awkwardness of confrontation. They will make promises they cannot keep to avoid saying no. They will let the team drift into mediocrity because they prioritize the comfort of the moment over the necessity of the standard. Their subordinates might smile at them in the hallway. They might even invite them to lunch. But when the pressure mounts and the ship begins to sink, those same subordinates will look at the manager with disdain. They will see a person who was too weak to lead. The affection evaporates, and only contempt remains. Contrast this with the leader who prioritizes respect. This person is kind in the truest sense. They set clear boundaries. They enforce standards not out of cruelty, but out of a commitment to excellence. They are willing to have the difficult conversation. They are willing to be temporarily disliked in service of a greater goal. They do not do this because they enjoy conflict. They do it because they respect themselves and the mission too much to compromise. Machiavelli famously asked whether it is better to be loved or feared. He concluded that while one would wish to be both, it is safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Now we must strip the word fear of its villainous connotations for a moment. In this context, fear is arguably a cousin of respect. It is the understanding that there are consequences to crossing you. It is the realization that you have a backbone. Men have less hesitation in offending a man who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared. Love is held by a chain of obligation, which, because men are selfish, is broken at every opportunity for their own interest. But fear is held by a dread of punishment that never fails you. The nice person relies on that chain of obligation. They think that because they were nice to you yesterday, you are obligated to be nice to them today. They are shocked when they are betrayed. They are stunned when their sacrifices are forgotten. They do not understand that human nature is inherently self-interested. When the nice person gives everything away, they make themselves valueless. Supply and demand applies to character as much as it does to economics. If your agreement is automatic, it is worthless. If your time is always available, it is cheap. If your forgiveness is guaranteed, it is despised. The kind person, however, introduces the variable of respect. They are generous, but not unlimited. They are understanding, but not permissible of abuse. They operate with a quiet authority that signals they cannot be used. This generates a gravitational pull. People are drawn to strength. They are drawn to those who have the courage to say what is true rather than what is convenient. There is a deep irony here. The nice person seeks affection and ends up with neither affection nor respect. The kind person seeks respect and often ends up with both. When you stand your ground and act with principle, people may initially bristle. They may call you difficult or rigid. But over time, as they see your consistency, they begin to trust you. Trust is the foundation of deep and lasting affection. You cannot truly love someone you do not respect. You can only pity them or use them. You must stop viewing every interaction as a referendum on your likability. You must stop checking the temperature of the room to decide who you are going to be today. The path of the nice person is a descent into resentment. You give, and when the world does not give back, you become bitter. You become the smiling martyr we spoke of earlier. You boil with hidden rage because you feel you have held up your end of a contract that no one else signed. The path of the kind person is the ascent into sovereignty. You act according to your code. You help others because it is the right thing to do, not because you are buying their approval. You speak the truth because lies are corrosive, not because you want to be praised for your honesty. You become a rock in a chaotic sea. Think of the figures in history, or even in your own life, who left a mark. Were they the ones who agreed with everyone? Were they the ones who never ruffled a feather? Or were they the ones who had the audacity to define their own terms? The nice person is a leaf in the wind. The kind person is the wind itself. This shift requires a death of the ego that craves applause. It requires you to tolerate the discomfort of being misunderstood. There will be times when your no will be met with anger. There will be times when your boundaries will be tested by those who benefited from your lack of them. This is the friction of growth. Do not shrink from it. Machiavelli warned that a prince who tries to be good in all regards will come to ruin among so many who are not good. This does not mean you should become evil. It means you must become capable. You must be capable of withholding your favor. You must be capable of enduring the withdrawal of affection. You must value your own self-regard higher than the applause of the gallery. When you prioritize respect over affection, you liberate yourself. You are no longer dancing on the strings of other people's expectations. You are free to be kind, because your kindness is a choice, not a compulsion. You are free to be generous, because you are giving from a position of power, not a position of debt. The transition from nice to kind is the transition from a boy seeking a mother to a man seeking a mission. It is the realization that you are not here to be a pet to society. You are here to be a participant, and participation requires that you bring something solid to the table. It requires that you bring a spine. So let the need for constant affection die. Let the fear of disapproval wither. Stand up straight. Speak your truth. Draw your line in the sand. Those who matter will respect you for it, and those who only wanted to use you will fall away. This is not a loss. It is a purification. Step out of the shadow of the courtier and into the light of your own authority. Choose respect. It lasts longer. The death of the nice guy. We have arrived at the final station of this psychological dissection. We have stripped away the smiling mask to reveal the resentment boiling beneath. We have traced the etymology of ignorance and exposed the hidden contracts that rot relationships from the inside out. Now we must perform the final necessary act. We must officiate the funeral of a persona that has likely plagued you for decades. This segment is titled, The Death of the Nice Guy. To understand why this character must die, let us look one last time at the landscape through the eyes of Niccolo Machiavelli. In his seminal work, the Prince Machiavelli posits a difficult truth that creates friction in the modern mind. He suggests that a leader who is concerned solely with being loved will inevitably be despised. By trying to please everyone, the nice guy takes no stand. He defends no territory. He upholds no rigid principles. In his desperate attempt to avoid conflict, he becomes a leaf blowing in the wind of other people's desires. And as Machiavelli warned, a ruler who cannot be relied upon is soon overthrown. The nice guy believes that his agreeableness is a virtue. He tells himself that his inability to say no is a sign of his generosity. But we now know the truth. This is not generosity. It is cowardice wearing a halo. It is a strategic submission designed to purchase safety. You must kill this version of yourself because he is incapable of true morality. This is a heavy statement, so let us weigh it carefully. If you are only nice because you are afraid of the consequences of being disagreeable, then you are not virtuous. You are simply harmless. A rabbit is not virtuous because it does not eat the wolf. A rabbit is harmless because it lacks the capacity to be otherwise. The transition from nice to kind requires the integration of your shadow. It requires you to realize that you possess the capacity for aggression, the capacity for disagreement, and the capacity to inflict emotional discomfort. When you possess these weapons and choose to keep them sheathed until necessary, you become kind. Kindness is not soft. Kindness is often cold. Consider the difference between a friend who tells you that you look fine when you are destroying your health and a friend who sits you down and tells you the harsh truth about your condition. The first friend is being nice. He is prioritizing the immediate comfort of the interaction. He is protecting himself from your potential anger. He is placating you. The second friend is being kind. He is risking the friendship and enduring the discomfort of conflict because he values your long-term well-being over the short-term emotional stability of the moment. The death of the nice guy is the birth of the man of value. It is the moment you stop asking the world for permission to exist. When you operate from a place of chronic niceness, you are in a constant state of begging. You are begging for validation. You are begging for someone to acknowledge your sacrifice. You are begging for love in exchange for your subservience. This dynamic naturally creates disgust in others. Humans are hardwired to detect weakness and insecurity. When you project the energy of a pleaser, you trigger a predatory instinct in the worst people and a feeling of pity or annoyance in the best people. To execute the nice guy, you must become comfortable with being disliked. This is the great filter. You must accept that by setting boundaries and speaking your truth, you will inevitably alienate those who are only benefiting from your lack of spine. This is not a loss. This is a purification. As you shed the need to be universally liked, you gain something far more valuable, which is being respected. Machiavelli famously asked whether it is better to be loved or feared. He concluded that while one would wish to be both, it is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two must be wanting. In a modern social context, we can translate fear to respect. Respect is grounded in the understanding that you have lines that cannot be crossed. It is grounded in the knowledge that you have a backbone. Love without respect is merely sentimental attachment to a pet. You do not want to be the pet of your social circle or your workplace. You want to be a sovereign agent. The nice guy operates on a timeline of minutes. He wants to survive the next 10 minutes without awkwardness. The kind man operates on a timeline of years. He wants to build a life of integrity and competence. He understands that a difficult conversation today saves a relationship next year. He understands that refusing a request today preserves his energy for his highest priorities tomorrow. There is a terrifying freedom in killing the nice guy. When you stop trying to manage the emotions of everyone around you, a massive weight lifts from your shoulders. You realize that other people's feelings are not your responsibility. You are responsible for your actions, your intent, and your character. You are not responsible for how others choose to interpret your boundaries. This transformation requires you to burn your hidden contracts. You must stop doing things for others with the secret expectation of a return. If you do something, do it because you choose to. Do it because it aligns with your principles. Do it because you genuinely want to assist, but never do it to buy affection. If you help someone, help them. If you cannot help them without resenting them, then do not help them. It is better to offer a clean no than a poisoned yes. The nice guy creates a fog of ambiguity. He says maybe when he means no. He says it is fine when it is not fine. This imprecision is a form of lying. It distorts reality for everyone involved. The kind man brings clarity. His yes is gold, and his no is granite. People may not always like the granite, but they can lean on it. They know where it stands. Let us return to the image of the surgeon and the butcher. The nice guy is like a surgeon who refuses to cut the patient because he does not want to leave a scar. In his refusal to inflict pain, he allows the infection to spread and kill the patient. He has failed in his duty because he prioritized his own discomfort over the necessary action. The kind man makes the incision. He possesses the steel to inflict the precise amount of pain required to heal. As you move forward from this audio, remember that the world does not need more appeasers. The world is drowning in people who say what they think others want to hear. The world is starving for men and women of conviction. It is starving for people who are rooted in reality rather than lost in a performance of politeness. The death of the nice guy is not a tragedy. It is a graduation. It is the moment you step out of the nursery of people-pleasing and into the arena of adult agency. You will find that, as you stop trying so hard to be nice, you naturally become more generous. This seems paradoxical, but it is simple mechanics. When you are no longer depleting your energy on people who do not matter, you have an abundance of energy for the people who do. When you are no longer seething with hidden resentment, your acts of service become genuine. You become dangerous in the best sense of the word. You become capable. You become a force to be reckoned with rather than a rug to be walked upon. This is the essence of Machiavellian virtue in the modern age. It is the strength to be good rather than the weakness of being harmless. Let the nice guy die. Let his seeking of validation fade into the past. In his place, build a fortress of boundaries and principles. Operate from a place of abundance and strength. Be cruel to the dysfunction so that you may be kind to the human. This is the only way to live a life that commands respect. This is the only way to escape the courtier's dilemma and stand as a prince in your own domain. The facade is over. The reality begins now. The sovereign of the soul. This transformation marks the end of a performance. You are no longer an actor begging for applause on a stage built by others. You are now the sovereign of your own soul. The nice person sought safety in submission and hid their resentment behind a fragile smile, but you have discarded that heavy mask. You now understand that true kindness requires the capacity for strength. It is the conscious choice of the powerful to extend a hand rather than a weapon. You do not act out of a desperate need for validation. You act because it aligns with your internal principles. This is the ultimate freedom. You are no longer a slave to the emotional whims of the crowd. You have traded the cheap currency of likability for the enduring gold of respect. Walk forward with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own capacity for both destruction and creation. Do not seek to be harmless. Seek to be capable and disciplined. The world does not need more pleasant victims. It needs individuals of dangerous integrity. This is your reality now.